Hi, my name is Stanford Smith, host of the Big Diesel Fit podcast. On the show today for you, I have Doctor Mitchell Yass. Just an amazing guest. So without any further ado, let's just get right into it.
There is a false perception that sitting is going to lead people to carry weight and that you need to be more active. The more active you are, the less weight you are. Now, that to some degree is true, but what really affects your weight, so what you need to understand is what is fat? Fat is stored energy. That's what fat is. Fat is stored energy. And that energy source is primarily used for what is known as metabolism, the ability of you to stay alive. So your heart has to pump, right? And your lungs have to come in and out. And your gastrointestinal system has to break down foods into nutrients. And your immune system has to protect you, right? There is an energy requirement for all that to happen. That is what is known as metabolism, and fat is the primary energy source for that. Okay? So, if you want, let's say you're having difficulty, you're putting on more fat, which is to say you're not burning as much energy, what would be the answer? You don't have enough tissue alive to burn more fat. So I can't give you more kidney, I can't give you more liver, I can't give you more spleen, but what can I give you more of? Muscle. If I make you lift weights and cause muscles to adapt to progressive resistance, cause the muscle to adapt to more and more resistance, the muscle is going to get bigger. If there is more muscle to keep alive, in effect, more of you to keep alive, doesn't your heart have to work harder? Don't your lungs have to work harder? Doesn't your gastrointestinal system have to work harder? Doesn't your immune system have to work harder? So all your systems have to work harder to keep this more extra amount of you alive. Well, that means you're going to burn more calories 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. What is the energy source for that? Fat. So the real, true scientific understanding of how to control fat isn't about staying active. It's a question of how much muscle mass you have on your body. So if you happen to be a trucker, if there's a way that wherever you're trucking to, there's an opportunity at some point 3 days a week to get to a gym. I mean, I'm hearing now the Planet Fitnesses are like in every city on the planet now, and it's $10 to join it and $5 every time you use one in another state. 3 times a week, you go to a gym and you progressively increase the resistances and sustain your weight, your muscle mass. I don't give a shit if you're driving. I don't care. You're going to control your body fat. You're not going to be a fat person. That simply is fact, irrefutable, scientifically proven. I can only imagine how that trucker feels being out there saying to themselves, God, I hate the way I look, I hate the way I feel, and there's nothing I can do about it because I can't be active. I can't go on a treadmill 10 hours a day. And I'm telling you, that's all bullshit. Go to a gym 3 times a week, pull in some wherever you are, 3 times a week, give yourself an hour, hour and a half, get on I can show anybody a proper weightlifting program for all your body parts, all the muscles. Start progressing the resistance, make some muscle mass, and then you'll never have to worry. Once you sustain your muscle mass, you're going to keep burning. It doesn't stop because that tissue needs more energy to keep it alive.
You know, one of the things that I think that scares people of becoming a driver is that you tend to see a lot of drivers packing on weight rather quickly.
And that is horrible. That is horrible that someone who happens to decide to do this it's their living. It's the way they make a living. It's how they support their family. They can't just pick up and say, I'm going to try and do something else. So what can you give that person to allow them to live the life in the healthiest manner? And if fat is the issue, if they're worried about their weight, build muscle mass 3 days a week. That's all it takes. And you will hold your muscle mass even when you're driving, and you will not put on fat. That's a fact. Much, much more important than your diet. I don't care what anyone tells you.
I'm not sure if it's just a myth or not, but I've heard both sides, women and men, say that if a woman starts lifting heavy weights, then she's going to start to develop like a man.
All that fear. Oh, I'm a woman. I'm afraid I'm going to look like a man. Women don't have the level of testosterone that a man does. So there is simply no possible way they could put on the equivalent muscle mass of a man. It's just impossible. But I'll give you an example. You want to talk about a woman? I had a lady, 340 pounds, 5'4", 340 pounds. She was told she had knee pain due to being bone on bone. That was a lie. She had a muscle imbalance between her front thigh and back thigh muscle, so her quad had shortened, pulling on her kneecap excessively. That was causing her knee pain. Over 6 weeks, she did strengthening. Pain was gone. In the meantime, she happened to burn 20, she lost 20 pounds in that 6-week period. She was so impressed by that, she decided to stay on for personal training. And over the next 18 more months, she lost another 160 pounds. So cumulatively, over 22 months, she lost 180 pounds. She went from 340 to 160 pounds. Diabetic, she had high cholesterol. So you can't tell me she changed the diet because she was an insulin dependent, so she had a certain diet she was using. The only thing that changed was strength training and putting on muscle mass. And she's just burnt 108. She literally took her body to half the size it was just with weightlifting.
I think there's some confusion when there comes to losing weight, because I've often heard that cardio is the best way to lose weight. Because I know I go in the gym a lot of times and I see people just riding on the Stairmaster, or they're running on the treadmill for an hour at a time or so. Would you say that that is the best way to lose weight, or the fastest way?
Yeah, so that's now, see, this is good. Now you're talking about the idea of the exercise itself. When does that begin to burn fat? I'm not telling you weightlifting is going to burn fat. Weightlifting will have the same caloric value as, let's say, going on a treadmill for an hour or 2 hours. The problem is that it'll take 20 to 25 minutes before you'll begin to burn fat if you're doing the treadmill correctly. But as soon as you stop doing the treadmill, you stop burning the calories, the fat. While if you're doing weightlifting and progressively increasing the resistance, you're making increased muscle mass. That muscle mass burns those fat calories 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It doesn't go away. You still have the muscle mass on you even after you stopped weightlifting. That's the magic sauce, is that weightlifting doesn't burn calories as you're doing it. It makes you build muscle mass, and muscle mass burns calories 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When you're sleeping, you're burning more calories. And by the way, it's 30 to 50 calories per pound of fat. So if you put 10 pounds of muscle on, you're burning 300 to 500 calories per day more just by living. And if you talk about 500 calories a day in a week, that's 3,500 calories, which is a pound of fat. So if you put 10 pounds of muscle on, every year you will be losing 50 pounds of fat just by existing, just by having that extra 10 pounds of muscle mass on you. I pray people are hearing this and saying, holy shit, I never heard anything like this. Is great news. I can have my occupation and still have the healthy body I want to have.
Oh, I know. I mean, I'm sure that some people may find it hard to believe that it's really just this easy.
Oh, this has been proven. I mean, I have empirical evidence. I took a lady 340 pounds and I made her 100. This is kind of, so I've treated people for 30 years for diagnosis and treatment of pain, and my expertise, I've shown in 98% of cases, the cause of pain is muscular. So I do targeted exercise, strength training to resolve these causes, and people end up pain-free and fully functional. So people would come to my facility, and the funny thing is, a woman might come for 4, 5, 6 weeks. She loses 5 pounds. They're like, I don't understand. What a bonus. Not only did I lose my pain and achieve my function, improve my function, but I've lost weight. And that's because they're making muscle mass. Progressive resistance exercise builds muscle mass. Muscle mass burns fat as its energy source. It's just the way it is, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's irrefutable. It's just it is pure science. Pure. That's the way physiology works. It's the way the body works. So that would be my position about someone who's struggling with weight who's driving. You don't have to feel like that. You don't have to think there isn't a solution. There is a clear solution. So, and it's not as much as everyone thinks you have to be in the gym. 8 hours a day and 3 times a week, an hour, hour and a half. You do 2 body parts on any one particular day. Really focus on the resistance. You never do more than 2 exercises per body part. That's what I do. I put 60 pounds of muscle on. I went from 160 to 220 pounds. You're going to keep the amount of stuff you're doing to a minimum and focus on the amount of resistance you're pushing. That's how you make muscle mass. So people talk, they think, I got to do multiple 5 exercises for a body part. You never do more than 2. Never more than 2.
I know you've written several books over the years. Now, is there one that you would suggest as a beginner's guide?
And so my first book, called Overpower Pain, in 2008, it was my first book, and what it did was it talked about what the most common muscular cause of pain was from head to toe, every joint. And in the back, there was a weightlifting program chart. And it would allow you to take the exercises that are presented, start and finish pictures for each exercise, and description of how to do the exercises in the book. And the weightlifting progress chart would allow you to mark on a daily basis. I did this exercise. This is the weight I used. This is the number of sets, and show you how you could progress your resistance. The good news was, for every body part, I asterisked a specific exercise, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the most effective exercise for that particular body part. So if someone said, I want to really just stick to the most focused way of putting muscle mass on, I would tell you, go to that book, and it's Overpower Pain, and basically just do the asterisk exercise for each one of those body parts. Get a resistance where you could do 10 repetitions, but you feel like you're working pretty hard at it. Eventually, when you could do that 10 repetitions fairly easy, progress the resistance to a resistance where the 10 repetitions is hard. Stay with that until it gets easy. Progress the resistance. Just do that. That alone, geez, in 3 to 4 months, you'll have put on enough muscle mass, you'll start seeing the weight start to melt off.
Now, can you also use calisthenics to put on muscle mass?
Watch out. When you say calisthenics, by definition, calisthenics is exercise without resistance. It's moving your body. Let me be very clear. You cannot grow muscle mass without causing it to adapt to greater resistance. Now, some people will say, if I do calisthenics, I'll get stronger. If you're saying, I did nothing and then I did something, I don't care what it is, walking, playing tennis, golf, calisthenics, certainly going from nothing to something will cause a muscle to adapt. But you reach a very quick point at which you have created an equivalent strength to the equivalent activity requirement. That's it. It stops. There ain't no more growth. How do you know that's true? Empirical evidence. Look at a professional tennis player. Look at the forearm of a professional or the overall arm of a professional tennis player. If you look at the arm he uses and the arm he doesn't, that arm is definitely slightly larger. But if it was to grow strength unendingly, all tennis players would look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Do they look like Arnold Schwarzenegger? No, because all you could do is get your strength up to the equivalent force requirement of that activity, and that's as far as the muscle grows. After that, the only way to get a muscle to grow is causing it to adapt to greater and greater resistances. That's what triggers the inflammatory response in the muscle to make it want to grow muscle. So you got to, if you want to put muscle mass on, you're going to have to do progressive resistance exercise. But the key is that you only have to do 1 or 2 of them for any body part. Keep your sets down to 3 or 4 at most, and it's just a question of the resistance you use. Make sure that at least in 1 or 2 of those sets, you're using a resistance where If you're trying to do 10 repetitions, it's really hard to get to that 10th repetition and stay with that resistance until you get to the point where it's easy, then progress the resistance to the next level to where it's hard. Stay there until it gets easy. Progress to the next level. And that's the basis of strength training.
When I am training with a new client, I always tell them that to work out a few days a week, no more than an hour.
No, so to me, I think if you stay for an hour, hour and a half, where you're just doing weightlifting, I think you're giving yourself more than enough time. You're allowed, you know, you got to have a certain attitude. So why are you going to the gym? If you're going there just because you think you're supposed to go there, that's not going to be very efficient. You're not going to be very focused, and you're probably not going to get a result. But if you go there with an intention, my job is to do these 2 exercises for these 2 body parts, which is 4 exercises. You do 3 to 4 sets for every one of those. 45 minutes to an hour, you should be focused on what you're doing. You should have good intention. You should be really trying to push the weight to a level where you feel you're working hard. An hour, hour and a half at best is all you should need 3 times a week. I don't think that's a lot to commit. Most people think you got to go to the gym almost every day. I'm telling you, you're actually hurting yourself if you're doing that. You're overtraining, and you're going to lead your muscles to strain. 3 times a week is all you need to do. I've been lifting weights 3 times a week. I've been doing this for 38 years, and I put on 60 pounds of muscle.
I like to work out just one muscle group per week, and then I just let it recoup for a week.
You need that healing time. Everyone has to understand, very important point. When you are weightlifting, you are not making muscle. You are creating micro tears in the muscle. And the muscle then heals over the next 24 to 48 hours through an inflammatory response. If you try to strengthen during that healing phase, you can strain the muscle. You need that healing time is just as important as the time you're using to break down the muscle. Embrace the idea that after the next day after, you don't want to be overworking that muscle at all. You want to try not to do too much with that muscle because it's healing.
I myself too have been working out and bodybuilding and competed in plenty of competitions over the last 30 years. And I just love that soreness that my muscles feel after a good hard workout. But I have literally had clients that have quit on me because of that pain.
That soreness is the inflammatory. You want to get that soreness. That's the representation of the what that soreness is, that the body has recognized there's been damage, minor damage, to the muscle, and it's now send blood to the muscle, which has white blood cells, healing cells, and also proteins. And so you're sore because you're swollen, because you have excess blood in the area, which is healing the muscle by making more muscle mass with the proteins from your blood. That's what the soreness represents. Because the muscle it's in an inflammatory response. It's healing. So it's not in a position to create its optimal force output anymore during that period of time. So if you try to do an equivalent weight to what you did the day before, and that muscle just isn't in a capacity to do it, you're going to strain it. When people there's this phrase, I'm burnt out. When people talk about they're burnt out, they're working out too much. They're literally no longer building muscle. They're straining their muscle. That's what burnt out means. They're doing it too often, and they're not getting the benefits, the joyous benefits. They're actually straining their muscles, and they're actually seeing a regression. And so that's what burnt out means. You don't want to do it anymore because you've done it too much. So I have been lifting weights for 38 years. So while I'm telling you a story, I'll show you something. So I'm 63, by the way. So I've been doing the same exercises for 38 years, and it's the core, bench press, incline press, military press, post delt, squat, straight leg deadlifts, the same exercises. But I know how to do them. I am a biomechanist. I applied the laws of physics to weightlifting and created my own method of strengthening, which is what I use in my method of diagnosing and treating pain, in most cases being muscular. So because of that, I have never plateaued in my ability to get stronger. 38 years, I've never stopped getting stronger. The average person does not understand the technique correctly. So what happens is they get to a point at which they don't feel that they're progressing, and so they try a different exercise. In trying a different exercise, you're going to be hitting the muscle in a different way. Maybe you're not even doing it correctly. Maybe there's some lack of stability that you've lost because you're not stable. And so as a result, nobody's staying the course with the exact mechanism for strengthening and applying progressive resistance to where they're constantly progressing. They're just changing. Because I know there's a lot of people in the fitness world that say you should do that. Shock the muscle. There's that foolish, stupid statement. Shock the muscle, as if the muscle has intelligence. It gets to decide what it's going to respond to. I mean, that's just psycho. It doesn't mean anything. Muscles don't have a decision as to what. It's quite simple. If you create a force line of your joint that's in the line that muscle is the optimal muscle to create that force, it contracts. You have no choice. And if you do the technique perfectly, to where you've got no choice but to use the muscle you're trying to work, and you apply the appropriate resistance, you will get a result. It's automatic. It's irrefutable. I've treated 17, 18,000 people already over 30 years. There's nobody I haven't been able to get stronger. Nobody. I've treated from 5 to 102. There's nobody. Anyone can make their muscles stronger. It's a question of understand the technique, being optimally stable so the muscle can push its maximal resistance, and progressing the resistance. Those are the components. The people you're talking to just keep trying to shock their muscle. Well, you'll get a little sore because you did something different, but by the next treatment, next time you work out, or your muscles adapted. So it's done. You're not getting any more benefit from it.
Well, I have to say that you do not look your age at all, and that is some serious weight that you're lifting.
So I squat 405 pounds. I straight leg deadlift 405 pounds. You know, my incline bench is 110-pound incline dumbbells, 110-pound dumbbells. Everything I do is heavy. A lat pull down, 295, almost 300-pound lat pull down. Everything is heavy. But remember, 38 years, I've never, ever stopped progressing because my technique is so pure that it isolates the muscle and continues to allow it to adapt. So just as a general rule, the idea of plateau is a fallacy. Don't believe it. There's no such thing. So there's something called the law of diminishing returns. So I'm going to teach you. Everything I teach is science. The law of diminishing returns says that for any particular thing you try to do, a certain amount of effort will get a certain amount of benefit from it. So whether you're trying to get more money in a job, or you're trying to learn how to play tennis, or you're trying to get stronger in weightlifting, initially, a set amount of effort will get you a set amount of benefit. And that continues. The more that same amount of effort keeps getting you more and more benefit. But eventually it plateaus. Now, that same amount of effort is getting you less and less benefit. Same amount. But here's the thing. You see that? You see how the curve is this and then it's this? You see how it comes down? It never reaches zero. It never reaches zero. So it never reaches the point where if you put a set amount of effort in, you get no benefit. That's a lie. This is the law of diminishing returns. This is a natural law of how life works. So that's how you know that even Tiger Woods, at whatever level he was, if he continued to try, he could still get better. It's harder and harder to get better, but he could say, there's no point at which he would say, I cannot get better anymore. It is zero. That is the law of diminishing returns. So the law of diminishing returns tells you that it will certainly, if the more and more you lift weights, the harder it will be to progress, but it never reaches zero. That's a fact. So at 38 years of weightlifting, I'm still getting stronger. I still go up in my weights.
Yeah, I know when I was younger, I used to want to lift weights, and my parents wouldn't let me lift. They told me I had to wait till I was at least 13 because it would stunt my growth.
With all the money that has now been put into sports, parents have decided their kids should start very, very early trying to play sports, golf and baseball and football and all these games. And what happened was, this is, I think, in the late 1990s, there was a massive influx of emergency room visits for children. The number of kids getting hurt in sports went out of control. It was crazy. It went up geometrically. And so the American College of Pediatrics suddenly decided they've got to come up with a position. And the position is that any child over the age of 8 years old can do weightlifting, but it must be done at a maximal resistance level of 50%. They can't use one max rep. They can only go at 50% of what their max should be. Everybody else, adults, it's 80% of their maximal effort. So it's 50%, but they could do bench press and military press and bicep curl and skull curl, all of it over the age of 8. All that bullshit about stunting bone growth, that was proven to be bullshit, more nonsense. So I actually had a kid that had knee pain and ankle pain. She was only 5. And I recognized her as having muscular deficits. And so we did weightlifting, but we used resistance bands. And I made sure that I would ask her, even at 5, I could ask her, is this easy? Is this medium? Or is it hard? And I kept it easy. So I still isolated her muscles, but I kept the resistance very, very low. And by 9 months, she was pain-free and fully functional. And she followed on and stayed with my personal training program for 4 years. Never had a symptom again.
Okay, Doc, I just want to switch gears here just for a little bit because I'm an ex-truck driver and I've been dealing with pain for quite a long time. I was driving for 22 years and I just now recently even heard of the name sciatic, but I used to drive a lot with my wallet in my back pocket. And I was told that that's why I have all that pain in my back. And
sciatica is the number one symptom that drivers get. I think I'll say they sometimes get low back pain, but because their foot is out in front of them, I'll bet you the number one symptom for drivers is sciatica. So let's talk about its etiology, what it is, and how we can stop it from happening. Because you were mentioning about the wallet, and I want to bring that up. And there is some truth to that. If you were sitting on a wallet, then by definition, you're weight bearing on one side of your butt more than the other. And that could have been a factor. So most people are told that sciatica comes from the lumbar spine, a herniated disc, arthritis, or stenosis of the lumbar spine. That is 100% false. I actually wrote an article. If you Google my name, Dr. Mitchell Yass, you'll see an article I wrote. Surgery for sciatic? Psychotic. And the answer is because it doesn't come from the spine. That is a lie. And I'll explain how I know that for sure. You just described it as called sciatica, irritation of the sciatic nerve. So the question becomes, if they're telling you that it's coming from your lumbar spine, a herniated disc, arthritis, or stenosis of the lumbar spine, then that is to say that the sciatic nerve must attach to the lumbar spine. And therefore, one of these discs or something could be impinging upon it. That's a lie. There is no such thing. No nerve attaches to the spine. No nerve attaches to the spine. Nerve roots come out of the spine at every level off the spinal cord. So L4, L5, S1, S2, those are nerve roots. Away from the spine, in your butt, in fact, they join together to form the sciatic nerve. So the sciatic nerve does not attach to the spine. The sciatic nerve begins in your butt, where 7 nerve roots that came out of the spine now join together. So the sciatic nerve begins in your butt, in the gluteal region. Then it runs down the back of your thigh to the back of the knee and then separates into 2 nerves, the tibial and peroneal nerves. So the entire length of the sciatic nerve is the butt to the back of the knee. So if you're to have sciatica, by definition, you must irritate the nerve somewhere within its path, the butt to the knee. I'll show you a picture. Let me show you this. This will be great for you. So this muscle is called the gluteus medius. This muscle is called the piriformis. You see that yellow string? That's the sciatic nerve. You see how this passes right next to it? So that piriformis muscle, if that's to strain, that will impinge on your sciatic nerve. So a muscle straining then thickens and impinges on the nerve. So you have a muscular cause creating a neurological symptom. So I am telling you very clearly and distinctly, there is nothing wrong with the structure of the sciatic nerve with sciatica. There's nothing wrong with the nerve. It is a muscle that's impinging on it. Now, this muscle is responsible for stabilizing the pelvis while the muscles of the leg pull off of it to create locomotion. So let's think about the driver who has his right foot on that goddamn gas pedal all the time. He's pushing out with his quad. That quad is attached to the pelvis. The pelvis is stabilized by the gluteus medius muscle. It is being overused because the guy didn't know it or the woman didn't know it, so they didn't strengthen that muscle. And so the gluteus medius strains. When the gluteus medius strains, the muscle off to the side, right? When this strains, this tries to assist and that strains. Once that strains the piriformis, it impinges on the nerve. And you get sciatica. Now, the problem is you're going to have this symptom of this horrible, horrible pain running from your butt down the back of your leg to your foot. You might end up feeling numbness. You might get to the point the driver might say, oh my God, I can't even drive because of this symptom, right? And all they know to do is go to the doctor who takes an MRI, who says they have a back problem, and you're going to tell them a cortisone shot or an epidural nerve block, or God forbid, they're going to tell them surgery. And if he has to get or she has to get surgery, they ain't driving anymore. They're out of commission. So that person's going to say, shit, I'm going to have to live with this because can't take the time off to get a surgery. That's sick. That's criminal because what they're telling them, the cause isn't the cause. All they have to do is do a series of 4 exercises that strengthen the appropriate muscles, stop those muscles from straining and impinging on the nerve, and they don't have sciatica anymore. And guess what? You could do that with resistance bands. So that driver, all they need is in their little passenger side seat, have a little set of resistance bands. They finish at the night. They go into a hotel room. They do this exercise. They don't have it anymore. I've been doing this 30 years. I basically have a 100% success rate in resolving sciatica because of the way I'm explaining it. It's muscular. It's not neurological, and it has nothing to do with your spine. That is one of the greatest lies perpetuated. It's physically impossible for your lumbar spine to create sciatica because no nerve attaches to the spine. That's just a fact. So let's take your case so let's talk about the possibility that the wallet issue was a problem. So let's say the wallet is in your left back pocket. So this is how you're going to be sitting. Your left side of your butt is off the seat. You're going to be putting more pressure on that right side, right? Well, that's where the piriformis and the sciatic nerve are running right through there. So I'm not saying that it's 100% of the cause, but it certainly could have been a contributing factor. So my answer to everybody, if you're going to drive, I suggest you make sure that you're weight bearing on your butt 50-50, man, because that's the way your body was designed. But if you end up doing something, now here's an example. Let's say it's not a wallet. Let's say that person somehow through functioning outside of the truck or whatever mechanism they're driving, let's say that when they were home and they were doing something, they strained a glute med. Let me show you. This is the other thing that could have happened. So that muscle is responsible for balance and stability when you're single leg standing. If that strains, there's a low back muscle on the other side that can compensate. That will shorten, that will pull your pelvis up on the opposite side from the weak glute med. So you could be standing with your pelvis higher on one side due to a strain of that muscle outside of driving. But then when you go to drive, you still have your pelvis like that. So you're driving without your weight bearing 50-50 on your butt, equal on both sides. So that thing that happened outside of the truck or whatever car or device you're driving, that could lead to you having problems in your driving. So the answer is that you have to make sure your gluteus medius is on both sides are equal in strength so that your pelvis is level, so that when you're standing or sitting, even sitting for a prolonged long time, you're weight bearing 50-50 on your butt. So that gluteus medius is it's the foundation of life. That one muscle is why we're human beings. It's what allows us to take one foot off the floor when we're walking, but it is the basis of life because it's what keeps the pelvis level. And when the pelvis is level, the distance our feet travel to the ground is equal. The spine is perpendicular to the ground. Your shoulders are level. Everything is balanced. And that's how normal function should happen. But if your pelvis is higher on one side, that side, the distance to the ground is longer. So you're not going to weight bear on that leg as much as the other leg. You're going to be overweight bearing. My spine is off to the side, and eventually I'm going to have to curve back. So you create scoliosis. You could end up, if that happens, I have my head's hanging to that side more, I could end up with neck pain due to a weak glute med because my pelvis isn't level. So you got to keep that pelvis level, and the way to do that is make sure those gluteus medius muscles are strong. And there's a very specific exercise I created, a strength training exercise that allows that to happen.
Well, I'm so happy I had this opportunity to speak with you. How can people get in contact with you?
I have a website, and that's usually, I think, the easiest way to reach me is it's called Live Without Pains, plural, livewithoutpains.com. And there's a contact us button. And then if people decide they do want the session, you can schedule your own sessions with me. There's a Calendly scheduler, so you can pick the day and time you want, and you can set up an appointment. But there is that contact us button. Or if you just want to go directly to my email address, it's Dr. Mitch at mitchellyass.com, DRMITCH at my name, MITCHELLYASS.com. So you can reach me that way. If people have questions and they want to just get more information about what potentially is bothering them, I have a YouTube channel, which is for Dr. Mitchell Yass. If you if you search for that on YouTube, there's 320 videos describing everything from migraine headaches to plantar fasciitis in the foot, what it is and how to resolve it. So shoulder pain, back pain, hip pain, all of it, 320 videos. And it's free content. So you can learn there. But what I would tell people is that you kind of really want to go in the right direction right away. So, and I have 3 books, by the way. I've written 3 books on the subject of this, Overpower Pain, the Pain Cure RX, and the Yass Method for Pain-Free Movement. And some people have been able to use that and do their self-diagnosis and do it themselves. But the thing is that I want people to start off right away getting the right diagnosis and the right treatment. So I kind of feel that it's worth it if you just want to, pay. It's $200 for a session with me. You get that first session. All my sessions, if it's a Zoom session, it's videotaped. So you're going to get that going forward. So that's what you use to make sure you're doing your exercise correctly. If you do an in-person session with me in Jacksonville, Florida, at the end of the session, I give you videos of every one of the exercises I want you to do. So, this is a transference of information. This is not physical therapy. This is not chiropractic. This is not pain management. This is a method that identifies if the cause of your pain is muscular, which I've shown it is in 98% of cases I've treated, then gives you the ability to understand how to do the exercises and perform them correctly, progressing resistance, so you take control of your life. You end your symptoms and you prevent them from ever reoccurring.
A lot of people believe in the medication. Now, if someone is taking the medication and it's helping them and they're able to manage and get along with the pain, is that okay?
I'm the antichrist to the medical system, my friend. I'm the guy who's telling you. So do I want you to be in pain while you're trying to resolve the cause? No. So if you need some mechanism to minimize your symptoms while you're addressing the cause, that's fine. But I don't know, I pray that you don't have to get to the level of opioids. That's opium. That's heroin, right? I think, first off, people know about Novocaine, right? Novocaine numbs you, right? When you go into the dentist. I don't think most people know. Ice. Ice is an anesthetic. Ice is the equivalent of Novocaine or lidocaine. That's a fact. So if you have severe back pain and you want to stop it, you throw ice on your back, in 2 minutes, you're numb. I could hit you with a hammer and you'd have no idea. So, do you have to go to medication? Why not use something natural like ice, right? If your muscles are sore, you could use, here's a classic. This has been around since probably the 1930s and 40s. Bengay. Anything that has menthol or camphor rubbed on your skin brings blood to the area. So if your muscles are sore, you bring blood to the area. That makes the muscle get more distensible, stretches it out, and pain receptors run along the muscle fiber. So if I stretch out the muscle, I deconcentrate the pain receptors, you don't have muscle pain. So you could use, that's a natural mechanism. If you want to go fully holistic, they have peppermint oil. Peppermint oil is the same exact thing. Camphor and menthol, same thing. Brings blood to an area. So those are alternatives outside of medication. But if the person feels they need it, I don't have a problem using medication short term. Just make sure that you've established the cause of your pain and you're addressing the cause appropriately so that in a very short period of time, the cause is gone and it no longer has the need to elicit your pain and you're living your life the way you want. And then you're off the medication short term.
I'm truly thankful that I had a chance to speak with you because I'm at that point now where I'm getting that pain in my neck now.
So you'll see I've done I've done videos about what that has to do with forward head posture, and that has to do with the fact that your anterior delt, your chest, and your bicep are stronger than your upper back, post delt, and triceps. And so what happens is your shoulders become rounded, and your shoulders rounding, your shoulder blades move away from your spine. The muscles that support your head run from the shoulder blade to the upper cervical region. So in them becoming overstretched, they lose their ability to support your head, and your head just keeps coming farther and farther forward, and that leads to more and more straining of that muscle. So you don't treat here, you treat in the upper back, strengthening the muscles that stabilize the shoulder blade. So this area has been programmed to people to believe that it's a cervical issue. It's not. It's a shoulder issue. That's nothing to do with your cervical spine. That's crap. Yeah. So here, if I did it from the side. So if you look at me right now, my ear's here. But if I didn't do what I do, I would have ended up like this. My head would be like this, and I'd be having rancid neck pain. And everyone's going to think it relates to your cervical spine. It doesn't. It has to do with the fact that your shoulder blades aren't being held back and down in the position they should be. And then that muscle, which attaches from the shoulder blade to the neck or the upper cervical region, is like a rope. It pulls your head back. So the position of your head is based on the position of the shoulder and shoulder blades, which relates to shoulder function and shoulder muscles. And that's probably another driver's issue, right? They're driving with the neck pain. You don't have to have neck pain, and don't, for God's sakes, don't address your cervical spine. It's your shoulder and shoulder blade musculature which is leading to that problem. And again, 4, 5, 6 weeks, done. Sustain it, you'll never have the problem again. And you can drive as 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever you want to drive, you'll have no problem. And I feel that, how many people do you think are retiring early or feeling that they have to go to another job because the pain is impeding them from driving? That's horrible. That's horrible. There is this premise that the activity creates the symptom. That's bullshit. That's a lie. It's not the activity. It's the lack of conditioning to perform the activity that leads to the problem. I can make you drive 10 hours a day, every day for the rest of your life. If you give me the chance to strengthen the appropriate muscles, you'll be able to do anything you want whenever you want because you're conditioned for it. But if you don't understand that principle and you think the activity is doing it, and if it causes enough pain, you think you have no choice, you have to stop the activity. Pure crap. So it's just a lie, just a fallacy. Nothing, not even remotely true. And if people want to question it, I'm doing this 30 years. I've treated 17, 18,000 people. I've taken people from any level of functionality to the highest level of function by doing this. So think about that person with the pelvis that's up like this. So here's what you don't understand. This is why this is so dangerous. So this leg is closer to the ground, right? So that's being overused. And this one is higher to the ground, so you're not weight bearing as much on this side. So you say, oh, that's great. I'm not weight bearing on it as much, so it's saving the muscles. No, no, no. Muscles work based on the forces that are being applied to it. So if you're not weight bearing as much as you should, what do you think is happening to those muscles? They're weakening. So on this side, you're straining, on this side, you're weakening. And the process just continues to worsen until eventually you can't function. So the answer is make your muscles have to adapt to the appropriate forces that are associated with life, and they will sustain their strength. But if you vary that, you're setting yourself up for straining and pain. Person comes out of my facility, they could have been crippled. They come out of my facility, 80 to 100% reduction in symptom and improvement in function after the end of the first session. That fast. Then they sustain the exercise, typically 4 to 6 weeks, done. Never have a problem. I don't care if they've had pain for 20, 30 years. Don't matter. That's how fast this is. That's how fast you can reorganize muscle.
I was just sitting here looking at the YouTube channel, and the way that you display the pictures here and explain it, everything just makes such perfect logical sense.
It's been proven, my friend. 30 years of this stuff, half my life I've been doing this. Thousands of people. I take people out of pain 10, 20, 30 years. They're out in a couple of weeks, done, pain-free. And more importantly, I've educated them. Now they're in control. This method is not with the intent of you being dependent on me for some sustained period of time. This is 3 visits, 4 visits, boom, done. You don't ever need me again. You've got control. You got videos, you've got understanding, you know what to do.
Can't wait to get to the gym today to start some of these exercises.
Good. Thank you for having me on, and hopefully, enough people hear this and reach out, and it's a simple message. You have control over your life much more than the medical system will have you believe. And you don't have to have your occupation dictate what occupation you do. As long as you understand the muscles involved in that activity, you can condition yourself. You could take control, and you could do it to whatever level you want, to whatever joy you want. And that's kind of what life's about on Earth, is that you happen to live on a planet that has a pretty strong gravitational environment, a gravitational force. So to do stuff, you're going to condition yourself for it. And that's great, because anyone can do it. Given the right understanding, with a little bit of time, you could make yourself do whatever you want, whenever you want.
Well, Dr. Yass, this has truly been an honor to being able to sit here and speak with you.
Thanks, man. Pleasure speaking to you. Take care, man. Bye-bye.
Well, that's going to do it for our show today. Thank you for listening. Make sure you tune in next week for more new and exciting guests.